all of the talent that they have at receiver. I mean, it really, really is a good story, and they kind of surprise everyone in the East. But end of the day, it always comes down to Georgia, and it appears we're on a collision course with Georgia and Alabama. Having said that, I've changed my tune, and that if I were the College Football Playoff Committee, which I'm not, I would rank Georgia number 1 this week based on yet another dominating performance. Ohio State, by virtue of resume, got there great, but they still don't impress me as the number 1 team, and they're not the best team. They were number 1 based on the resume. I think Georgia long but proved they're the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. I'm so exhausted hearing about the committee and the battles, and I know you are even more than I am, because I finally can walk away from it on Saturday, and you can't. But this Michigan Ohio State situation it will correct itself, assuming Michigan's still around. And I'm kind of tired of that story too, although it still remains the story of college football. And all the sources. And I mean, the thing about the Michigan story, not to digress, is that
please, because I was going to go there next anyway.
What really annoys me though is that the lack of objectivity. And I know what people say about us, and that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I can assure you that nobody at the network that we work at is being told what to say. We're not carrying the network flag. Michigan is a great university, and they have a great football team. And if they win the national championship, that's great. It doesn't change my life, doesn't change yours. But I don't think you can accurately say that about some other commentators who have a vested interest in Michigan being successful.
Do you think because we were talking about this yesterday in studio, could the Big Ten play this to their advantage and say, all right, we're going to give this another week or so, see how everything happens around us. Take Michigan out of the Big Ten championship. Okay, hear me out. Let's say they beat Ohio State, but they make them ineligible for the Big Ten championship, so they're 12-0. Ohio State gets in at 11-1. Sure as the sun comes up, Ohio State's going to beat the hell out of who comes out of the Big Ten West. Sure. So now you've got 12-1 conference champ Ohio State, 12-0 Michigan that wasn't eligible to play for your Big Ten championship, but the committee's already said this isn't a committee problem. This is a Big Ten NCAA problem. So could you give the Big Ten what they want, the Big Ten athletic directors what they want, punish Michigan, and still get both teams in the playoff?
Yeah, it's a really clever idea, because it might be the only way to get 2 teams in the playoff.
Right.
And I wouldn't put it past them, because that way you spare Ohio State, or possibly. I guess if Ohio State lost, they're not going to be in the playoffs. But if they win the game, I think it protects the league a little bit. I think so. Knowing the Big Ten, they'll probably suspend. They'll let Michigan play Penn State this weekend, and probably suspend Harbaugh for the Maryland game, which would be really unique. He'd be the only coach that's ever been suspended twice in the same season. And that'll have a bit, but they have nowhere to go. And I think Tony Petitti is just playing this great. He's having meetings with people, but in the end, I have no confidence in him doing anything as severe as you just laid out.
And to be clear, self-imposed suspension by Jim Harbaugh, which is probably what rankled the NCAA. It's like, wait a second, you're not going to take it seriously. I'm not even going to go down the line of all the stories that are out there about who started this investigation, because we just don't know.
It doesn't matter,
right.
Matt. And that's all I hear. And I had people blowing me up on Saturday. Hey, you saw Michigan's already corrected this by firing that guy. You couldn't get a bet on that in Vegas. The Connor Stallions was going to be let go. That was pretty easy to predict. And I don't know. Listen, we don't know all the facts, but we know a lot. And if Ryan Day's brother-in-law leaked the story, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as long as the school is complicit. That's the only thing that matters in this case.
And by the way, if Ryan Day's brother-in-law, head coach Ohio State, did leak the story, can we just put it out there that Ohio State and Michigan is the greatest rivalry in all of sport? We had the 10-year war between Bo and Woody. You had Urban Meyer doing his thing for a bit when he was just dominating Michigan. But now this is going on, close the curtains. This is the greatest thing we've seen in college football rivalries, and you've been around a bunch of them. And I'll put you out on this one. We'll wrap it up here. At the end of the day, Statement Saturday, first weekend of November, the headline was what?
Well, the headline, it was a dual headline, I think, because of the two games that were going on simultaneously. And it was that Washington and Alabama really survived. And I think it was probably a little bit bigger than Alabama, because I think we all knew Washington would be able to score 50 points against USC, but we weren't sure about Alabama. And I just can't help but think about, here we are on heading into the second week of November, and the Southern Cal program is just completely blown apart. And you know, all the sad faces. I mean, I because I don't think any program came into this season, even Georgia didn't get the hype that Lincoln Riley got and Caleb Williams got, and they've thrown it all away. And by the way, anyone who didn't see this coming, it just doesn't follow college football.
No, and when you really look at Lincoln Riley and USC, they're a 2-point conversion away from losing at Cal a week ago, and that would have made it 4 consecutive losses. And it would appear to me, barring any NIL paycheck that keeps him there, Caleb Williams is going to leave college football without playing in the college football playoff, without playing for a conference championship.
Truly remarkable. What was interesting about what was happening there, and this is an off the radar thing for most people, Matt, but not for you, considering you sit next to the former head coach at Florida. But what I would have given to be sitting with you yesterday in the middle of the afternoon watching the end of the Arkansas-Florida game.
Let's just put it this way. We will keep all of that in the studio where everything was said. Yeah.
But I'll offer this about Billy Napier, who's a really good guy. But he is now teetering. I mean, he was fighting for a bowl game at Florida. And by the way, this is the University of Florida. This is where Steve Spurrier had a decade of terror, where Urban Meyer 15 years ago only won 2 national championships, and they're still bitter that they didn't win 3. There was a Netflix documentary a couple of weeks ago that came out on that era, which ended in 2009 when Tim Tebow left. And what was it, the 5th loss of the season? I'm trying to remember. I think it was the 4th or 5th loss. I've lost track, quite frankly, how bad this team. But they lost to Arkansas, a team that literally hasn't beaten anyone. And that the remaining games, I believe, are at LSU, at Missouri, and Florida State.
Yeah, and yes, and you look at where
I think they have 4 losses.
Yeah, I'm going to check that for you right now, Sweet. But when you saw they did to Tennessee, you're like, oh, maybe there's a pulse. Give me something I can feel.